This is the Round Table, a talk show brought to you by the Glastonbury Goddess Conference. In this circle, the priestesses of the ceremonial circle, the weavers of our annual gathering, talk about pivotal topics about our community, spirituality, and goddess. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Round Table, our 16th episode. We are full on in our second season. Welcome to all the people watching us on YouTube and Facebook and connecting us through the podcasts. Thank you so much for being here. We're here today with Caroline Stevens. Say hi.
Hi.
Marian Brigantia.
Hello.
𝗨𝗡𝗩𝗘𝗗𝗏.
Hello.
And just come back from her travels, traveling priestess Katinka Sutens.
Hello, everyone.
Today is a very special episode. We're going to talk about sacred union versus sacred marriage. So we have investigated in the previous episode the different realms of sacred union, how we are all connected to sacred union. But today in particular, we're going to investigate a bit more the part that relates to couples, how they forge a union, how they become one in a way. Is it through sacred marriage? Is it just a sacred union? And is it one path different from the other? So in which way is sacred union different from a marriage? What are the rites and celebration, paths and devotions, choices and dedications that lead to one path or the other? And so we'll be sharing personal experiences. We'll be sharing our own path with sacred union. Maybe some of us had sacred unions with people we never actually married, and some people have experienced marriages without a sacred union going on. So who knows? We'll start from Caroline today. So Caroline, what's your take on this? Is sacred union different from a sacred marriage? Do you have both at the same time or none at all?
I think you definitely, in my experience, you can definitely have them at the same time and have one without the other. I think, and I have probably experienced both in life so far. For me personally, it does big start with that sacred union of the self. So being doing my own inner work enables me then to show up, I would say, in a more mindful way and in a more heart-centered way in relationship, and that then would bring that energy into the relationship that I am in, and enable me to see the whole self of the other, if that makes sense. So kind of to be able to mirror each other in the good times, in the challenging times, to be able to support each other. So, and yes, that is a marriage. So what makes that a sacred marriage, I guess? And that is, for me personally, where it's that weaving in of the deeper elements, potentially. So for me personally, it would be, as I said, that level of support, but the energetics of it, so the heart-centered place of unconditional love, mirroring that and seeing that in the other, if that makes any sense. But as I said, I've experienced the being in union and that not feeling sacred. So speaking into that was more a case of the woundings of the individual, of myself showing up. So I personally did a lot of work on that, and that was where I stepped out of a relationship in that case, to work on myself, and then found my beloved. And neither of us are perfect, but together we are. Together we have this sacred marriage dance that really works. So we lift each other up, and we support each other from that place of the heart, from a place of love and passion and compassion as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. I was thinking when you were talking, Caroline, I was transported back to my handfasting in 2022, which was presided by Katinka. And with our vows, it was an interesting thing, because in the training we do sacred union, sacred marriage, the hero's garments within, in the 𝗦𝗔𝗖𝗘𝗗 training, and I know in other trainings as well. And so I've been marrying myself for about 15 years or longer before I got handfasted in 2022. And I actually, in my vows, when I was thinking about my vows, that was actually what came up because it's like from that place of what you say, the work on yourself, and to find that inner sacred union, that inner marriage. You come from a different place when you step into a relationship, marriage, or any relationship, doesn't even have a marriage, but in my case, it was, and that was part of my vows. Like, I don't from that place, I need this and this and that for you, because I have this balance, this sacred union within. I choose you. That was my vow. I think I will probably remember. I choose you from that place of working on myself. So for me, that was very much a coming together of the two in ceremony, in a handfasting ceremony.
Two. Is it always two though?
Sorry, go, Andrea.
Can it be three? Can it be more? Are there variations of that?
I think so. I think this topic is very interesting because, you know, people ask us, do we have to be in a love relationship to come to the conference? Because it's a love year and it's sacred union, you know. Oh my goodness, this means you have to be with someone. And as Marianne was saying, first of all, you have to be with yourself. And then I would say the third is having that relationship with Goddess, you know, or exploring that, or beginning that relationship with Goddess. So, and like Caroline was saying, I don't think marriage and sacred marriage are the same things. Marriage is a very conventional setup. Not have anything against it. I'm married myself now, but I also was in a 17-year-long relationship with the partner with whom I had my children, where we were just choosing each other and not being married. And both are fine. They're just choices. You know, you can be in love commitments with more than one person that are of a deep connection, and you can be in a marriage that's seriously based on wounding connection or wounding choices or patterns, like Caroline was speaking into, you know. And I think we've all experienced degrees in our relationship history of this. For me, where sacred union comes in, like Marianne was saying, is if there is an experience of sacred marriage comes in, if there is an experience of sacred union within your own self. So for me, the language I would use is an integration really into the archetype of the beloved, with your inner masculine as a woman and with your inner feminine as a man, or however you identify, with different energies of you that are not placed within the conventional form of what we think that is through our conditioning. I think we had a conversation about that in an earlier roundtable. So a real internal field, really, that you can then meet somebody else in a love commitment with, who hopefully has also got that internal field. I think for me, that is that's choosing yourself first, not from a selfish place, but from that really going for, not settling for something from a wounding dynamic, but choosing from the shine, from the growing edge that Caroline was speaking into, you know, of choosing to be the best you can be with each other. And like Marianne was saying, that choice comes from something that is whole on the inside, that's not seeking something to complete it. And for me, that kind of love commitment, whether that is marked by marriage or hand fasting, or just choosing each other and deciding to go into life together, that would be sacred marriage. And that then, if you take that then into the sexual field, can be an experience of sacred union, but that has that spiritual element for me, only for me personally, to it. So, that's what I would say about it. What about you, Sadhu?
I think what's moving in me right now is this kind of is the aspect of sacred union as both an experiential state and then also as an ongoing path. And why I'm speaking about this is because I think, you know, about sacred marriage as this as a commitment to keep meeting one another and to keep leaning into the places of meeting, keep finding and reaching and exploring the places of meeting, and then in terms of on an experiential state, sacred union within a sacred marriage can be can be these moments of, you know, complete merging and togetherness and wholeness in the shared field of your relationship. But then it's also, for me, I would say sacred union is far bigger than sacred marriage as well. That, you know, sacred union has all of these different vibrations, of which sacred marriage is really one that directs us into the world of, or the path of being in a couple. Yeah.
I totally agree. I see it like that too. Yeah. I think it's beautiful the way you said that, about how you can take sacred union, which is so much bigger than sacred marriage, which we're playing with language here slightly, but how that is the relational aspect and how that comes from the inside first, and then how you keep choosing that. Yeah. I think we're kind of saying the same thing here. This is going to be a short round table.
I was just wondering when we were talking about sacred union in the sacred marriage. It's like when I fell into that, I was like, when you said, Andrea, you said at the beginning, like, is there a third? And I'm like, I think I would say the sexual sacred union within a relationship, or whether it's marriage or whatever, within a relationship, is then also an expression of the divine for me. I would say that's like there is then like a third energy, or maybe it's not. Well, you don't know. 1 and 1 is 2, or 1 and 1 is 3. You know, I don't know. It's like, but that really came through when you were talking, Sadhu, just now. That's when you have that real deep union, there's more. There's more than just the sum of the two, I would say.
Absolutely, and I think that's something that my husband and I tried to give form in our wedding and hand fasting ceremony, at which Sadhu and Marion facilitated. And we had this element for the center, the fifth element, that was like an embodiment, which is like, people go like, why on earth would you want to put on a show like that? But for us, it was really not a show, of course. It was actually trying to give form to that. What happens if you have married yourself, fully integrated the inner masculine and inner feminine, choosing another who has also done that as the beloved to share your life with in the relational aspect, and then both on similar though very different spiritual paths. And how do we make the spiritual or the sacred union of that visible in a ceremony? Because it's the center of our lives for both of us, and it is very important. It can't be left out. It is, anyway, so I think it's fascinating how, when we don't follow the conventional rules of what a marriage should look like and a marriage ceremony should look like, how we can actually begin to bring that in and give that different forms, and how that is so individual for everybody.
Yeah, that's very beautiful.
I was being extremely silly. That I really appreciate that you all took the three things I said very. I mean, I'm really surprised and really touched by that. I was also being a bit silly, and not in a goofy way, but silly in the way that I think that if we think about polyamorous people, and it's something that I encountered quite often at conference. I mean, there are people who are polyamorous and they have thruples, is that how you call them? Anyway, you have 3 person in the same relationship, and I think in that case, you kind of have that feeling a bit more, because we are used to the idea of couple, but in a way, if there's 3, I think you get that sense of choice a bit. It's much more about choice, because it's not even the construct that society kind of wants you to live in, but it's a proper choice. So I feel in that case it's an interesting dynamic, because for people who feel that and that have that connection with 2 people, so it's more than one, there's that matter of choice that brings in all the things you've said I think much more resonating way for them. It's much more of a choice. I don't have a direct experience of that, but I met people who are polyamorous at conference, and it was really interesting to get into that. So that ties in a lot more. So again, if we think about it's what's interesting for me is that contract is a word that is born actually from the act of marriage. So it was used later, I think, for commerce, but it begins with marriage in a way.
Okay.
So what's interesting about that is that we usually don't like the thing contract be referred to a union or to a relationship with someone, but in a way, it's also there's a clarity in stating what you wish for, what you want, what you get from that. It's really blunt, but in a way, how is a marriage or a union more similar to a contract, or is it a good thing, or is it bad that you have, I don't know, aims, objectives, or something you wish you want to be fulfilled by that union? Or is sacred union more, when we talk about couples or again unions in general, or is it more about let's go with the flow together? How do you feel about that? How is it your take on this?
I think that's interesting. I was going to say, what springs to my mind straight away is there's a beautiful book, isn't there, by Carolyn Mace called Sacred Contract, and I don't know whether you know of it. And it's not to do with sacred union and sacred marriage, but it's the concept of that a contract being sacred and life purpose. So your sacred contract is your purpose here in this incarnation in life. So I think if linguistically, I agree with you. I don't like the idea, the contract sounds very corporate, very paper, not very heart, not very passion filled.
No.
But the concept of a sacred contract suddenly sounds much more sacred and beautiful and much more appealing, I think. So yeah, I don't really have an answer to your question, Andrea, but I think that was what sprang straight. Yes, that's wow. Look at that.
I think it's
Wizard.
Yes.
But it's like, but it's interesting because I don't have a problem with the word contract because I'm a lawyer, so that's just in my language. But for me, it's like vows are as much binding for me as they are as like a proper legal contract, what you're talking about. So I think for me, if you have vows in handfasting, which is not legally binding, for me it's I did both when I got married, but for me that was far more important. And actually, I don't even know exactly. It's not very good, is it? But I don't know actually what in the marriage contract what it all is. But for me, the vows that I took with the handfasting are for me far more real and things to live by, and that for me is, you could say, is a sacred contract. And you do that also when you do an initiation. You say your vows, and for me they really matter. For me, that is actually the little paper that you get when you get into a marriage. It's more a practical thing, but it doesn't give me the clarity to live from in a relationship.
Yeah,
it's
I think that's really lovely what you're both saying. Sorry, Caroline, go.
No, carry on.
I loved what you said about sacred contract. I had heard of the book, I haven't read it, so that's for me I have issues with both the words actually. I think particularly because when we're looking at marriage contract, traditionally speaking, and where it comes from, it's extremely patriarchic, and it's about ownership of the womb that never belongs to the woman who has the womb. And so for me, that's a big deal. And I think it's really important to reclaim these rights to be appropriate for us now and for who we are as human beings and how we want to be in commitments. Vows equally have, for many people, not for myself personally so much, have a real negative connotation because they bind you to something karmically that you can never be free from. So for me, the question here is if the contract or the vow is sacred, which is also just a word. Yeah, I like it. It brings a whole other energy in. But from what you just said, Caroline, it's really good. Then there is something around what binds you to what. Does your intention from your heart binds you to your word. And that, I think, is what Marianne is speaking into when she talks about the importance of vows. Yeah, that for me is the core of it. It has nothing to do with a priest, a church, an institution, the government, or even your partner.
Yeah.
It binds you to the intention of your heart. And I think
good.
that is the sacred contract you're making when you're making a sacred vow or a marriage vow, which is part of that whole thing. But like Marianne said, there are other vows, initiation vows. They're not that the vow itself even is made to a specific goddess, for example, as a priestess initiation vow. It binds you to the intention of your heart, to your soul path, the form of which can actually change person. Yeah, but if we were actually true to that which binds us to the intention of our heart, which is to be in a loving life journey, or in a love commitment, that has a very different tone for me,
I think one of the issues, I think, with words like contractual is, for a lot of people, it brings up this idea of being forced to do something or have to do something. And I work a lot with couples who are opening their relationships, and how they create an agreement field that will take care of their relationship whilst they can explore with other sex and love relationship partners. And yeah, a big part here is really tuning into what you can enthusiastically agree to. I think Marianne and Katinka have also touched on this, about really what inspires your heart, what do you long for in relationship, what do you long to create, and what's going to inspire you to keep investing in it. And for me, that's a key part of making, I prefer an agreement to contract, sort of or a sacred agreement in a relationship, that is something that keeps inspiring you to come back and invest again in the relationship, not that's kind of like this ball and chain of like, oh God, now I have to do this again, because it's just not sustainable for anyone to live like that.
No, and also you have to be kind of flexible, because relationships change. So it's also, and I love that. I really love what you said about having that the vows of your intentions from your heart, because if you come from that heart, then there is also space for change. It's not like, oh, you said that then, and therefore it's now forever. It's not really that. It's like, how do our hearts speak to each other, and bring in that, compassion, love,
Yeah, and the field of compromise, because it's never just on one person's terms. If you're choosing relationship, it cannot be go and be by yourself if you want that,
Yes.
Yeah.
So we don't want to refer to contracts as anything that looks like this, basically.
I mean, they may have been happy, you don't know.
The part I love more about this representation, we're looking at, for people hearing us, not seeing us, it's American Gothic by Grant Wood. The thing I love the most is the stare she has towards him, is like, and it's the thing I think we don't want in a sacred union. And I have a question which is personal, because I never I don't get personal, but this is really close to my heart as a topic. And I mean, does it happen? Because to me, it happened. At some point, I looked at my heart and I was like, this is cheesy though, so prepare your glucose. This is gonna be cheesy, but it's the truth. I looked at my heart and I was like, oh, so it's not just me in here anymore. And it's like, it's that kind of union where you realize that all the choices, all the steps you've taken, and all the single choices have created a union that is not just strong, by one choice, but it's like deeply rooted within. And it's like, oh my God, this is not just me, it's us. And it's much greater than me. Yeah, again. And it's so rooted within. And it's something that, getting really emotional now, but it really resonates with a song from Dido, not a sacred singer of our goddess world, but if I go back in time and like these words that are, from behind these walls, I hear your song. The music that you play lights up my world, and everything is changing. This land is mine, but I let you rule. I let you navigate and demand, just as long as you know this land is mine. So find
Mm.
your home and settle in, and I'm ready to let you in.
Mm.
And I think at some point, if I don't get crying to this, it's gonna be great. I think at some point this happened for me. So I wonder. I hear many times the stories, in the spiritual world of choices, starstruck lovers. Oh, I saw him, and it was like the fire, the twin flame. I of course love Tabia very much from the moment I saw him. I mean, he's a stunner, and it's a beautiful human being. But I realized that for us, for instance, I mean, it was a matter of choosing day by day many things. And right now, look at that. And it's this huge sequoia tree planted in my heart. And it's a home for both of us. So is it always a conscious choice of a moment, of a rite of passage? Or is it in your experience as well, something that you realize that happened and it's just this life right now that you're living?
I
I
think that's
think it
very
can be
beautiful. I
both.
don't think that's cheesy at all. I think
No,
that's
it's
lovely. Thank
wonderful.
you for sharing that. It's beautiful.
Mm. But yeah, I think it can be both. I think it can be something that you specifically choose to open your heart to, and especially I think like some of us who have been in relationship before, and that have ended, which of course brings a lot of wounding, and then it's a choice to open your heart again and to be vulnerable again, and to trust again, and that's a choice. And of course also the other way can also be that it just happens, and then suddenly you think, oh, this happens, this is now part of me. And for me, it's like I sometimes say, like, to people, if you're in my heart, that's it, you never leave. And I think that is also true for me. My ex-husband also still lives in my heart. How can that not be? He's the father of my children. So it's like, yeah, it's just like it becomes like more like a youth hostel in my heart, kind of thing. So living there. But yeah, sometimes it is like you feel, yeah, it's just happened, and sometimes I think you really choose it.
Yeah, I loved what you spoke into as the us. Yeah, the realization of the us. And I think in polyamorous relationships, that us includes more than one person in that very intimate inner chambers of your heart, or the tree of your heart. Yeah. The homeland, whatever you called it from that song. And so there is this thing of, this is the experience of sacred union, or the gateway into that experience, because it is a oneness experience. And so it comes from, and also this what you were talking about, the longing for that being met and meeting in that way of us, is what people long for when they seek relationship, when they don't have their personal relationship. And I think if we can keep that in the foreground, if that is actually such a beautiful human thing, right? And it becomes more complicated with more people, because you have to be you have to be fiercely honest. And you have to be willing to compromise, which you have to in relationship anyway, And so it's a beautiful place of growth. And I think it can have so many different forms and be initiated in so many different ways, really.
And when you were speaking, one thing that came to me was the different levels on which we bond. Consciously bonding, which could be like these initiation ceremonies, or things that we consciously choose to bind the relationship and to invest in the relationship. But then there's so much unconscious and subconscious bonding, and and an awareness of this and a journeying with this is so valuable as well. So I definitely think it was both of the pieces you're saying, that there is, for me, I would say, there's the conscious kind of connecting, and then the unconscious connecting, and also becoming a bit more informed about how we lean towards various forms of unconscious bonding in relationship, which is a big part of shadow work, which is shadow work really, and really noticing our patterns in that, and how we and what we would choose in that, and also I think a piece of this is a real surrender to some of these, or a real acceptance of some of these parts of ourselves, and some of the needs that we have, and a recognition of the choices we make from those places as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you. That was really good. And
Caroline,
I also,
you have anything to add, darling?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was just going to, first of all, I was going to say thank you for sharing, Andrea, because I thought that was absolutely beautiful. And it really spoke to my heart, actually, because I've, my experience with my beloved was almost what I would now class as a kind of that's conscious mind entering into a relationship.
Yeah.
And then that complete experience of what you've had of like, oh, right. And then that feeling then from me and the little wounded self coming up and like, oh no, like this is a place, this is both wonderful and no. This is into a place of real vulnerability now, doesn't it? That thing.
Yeah.
So and that is the point for me where I had a conscious unconscious choice there where my heart could almost harden or melt, and it melted, it embraced it, it expanded into it, as I'm sure you have, that kind of like, oh, okay, that this is fine. And my heart just got bigger. But it could, I think there is the conscious choice, but when I had that realization of I could have gone, oh no.
Yeah,
And that speaks into that wounded place, Marion, that you mentioned of before. So that was but I hadn't actually registered that had happened until you said that. So thank you. Yeah, I haven't had that reflection before.
Beautiful.
We need tools in relationship to recognize where we have hardened, and tools to come back to places of meeting. I mean, these are
absolutely
really important things to have.
Yeah, and I think for me that's actually has been Goddess. I remember when I was going through my divorce, and it was actually Rhiannon, but it was embodied by Rose Flint, and I was like, really, I was in that place like never again. And then she, as Goddess, said to me, anything what you do, but don't close your heart. And I'm like, I would never forget that. I'm talking about getting emotional, but I never, yeah, that is, and it's, and it spoke to not my mind, it spoke to my heart. And so it's like, it's the conscious and unconscious dance together, really. So yeah.
And how important those tools are, and the friends, like the opportunities, like you're talking into there. But this is also, I think, why we have witnesses at a marriage, a sacred marriage, or whatever, an average marriage, or a hand fasting. You have your community, your friends, your family there as witnesses to remind you, or to guide you, or to help you. We can all bring these tools to relationships, which we all need. Deepening into this, opening into relationship that you're speaking about, Caroline and Marion, is really this. You will meet the places that are challenging and that need help, that need the tools that you mentioned, Sadhu. Yeah.
Wow, this has been really beautiful. Thank you, Mary, for sharing that as well. Thank you, Marion, so much. Thank you. Really, really beautiful. And this brings me to the last bit I wanted to touch today with this topic, which is pivotal, I think, in relationships, and both union or marriages, which is the concept of, we touched it before, compromise, which sometimes I get really stubborn about. And it's like, it's not like compromise, it's more about choices. Because in my language, for instance, compromise is this bad reputation, which is like your not allowing yourself something so something else can happen. But choices are conscious things. You're like, no, I choose this thing because that's what we want to do or what I want to do. And the third level of this is the sacrifice, which is a scary word at times because it means to put into the fire something so that it becomes sacred, sacrifice. That's the idea of it. So as there in your what did you have in your experience? Did you have more compromises, more choices, or more sacrifices in a way that you not reluctantly but renounced to something to burn into the fire so that something new could be born in your relationship? What's your experience with these three layers of, let's say, the same not the same dynamic but something similar?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that compromise in English also has both a positive connotation and a negative connotation. In peace negotiations, both sides have to compromise, otherwise you remain at war. So there's a positive and there's a negative connotation to this word. And I agree with you that it is about choice. And for me, the core of that choice is to meet. What I want to do is to meet with my beloved. I want to meet with my family. I want to meet with my friends in a way that's harmonious. How do we negotiate that? So that there is this, it is a choice. And I think sacrifice, if you make it from that choice, it's actually joyous, it's delicious. It's not a giving up of something. It is actually a stepping into something. I think one of the places where I'm not alone in this, where a lot of us learn this really is by being parents, because they have to be at the center of your life and you do sacrifice things, but it is, and that sometimes can feel like too much. There has to be a balance in everything, of course, or a place where the flow is right for everybody. But it's not a negative thing. It is something that makes sacred. I love that.
Well, I think it's this is for me. There's a difference between behavior and yourself. So it's like you can make behavioral compromises as long as you don't compromise yourself. You can make behavioral sacrifices. You can choose to do both, as long as you don't sacrifice yourself. So for me, I think that is, for me, is a very clear boundary on when I feel I'm compromising who I am. Then I really need to look at what I'm doing. If I'm making compromises, which you talk about, Andrea, about being choices, then I'm not compromising myself. I make a choice to have a different behavior. Same as sacrifice, and as like Tinga said, with children, sometimes you make sacrifices that you don't really want to do, but you're not sacrificing yourself because you're choosing it, and it comes from love. And I think that is with the compromise and the sacrifice, but in the way you are talking about it, Andrea, it's like, as long as that comes from this place of love, including love for yourself, then I don't see any problem with that in a relationship.
Yeah, what you say, Marion, really resonated with me, because I was thinking that it needs to come from this place of alignment with the self, because if not, if there's kind of a reactionary or a people pleasing, or if it's done with a different energy, then that's where resentment will come in. Oh, I've sacrificed this for you. I've compromised this for you. I've done it, that you throwing all of that. So really, it is a choice. It's an aligned choice, isn't it? A really kind of considered choice, and a conversation as well. I think it's the conversation. Yeah, all of it. God, it's good, isn't it?
For me, one of the gifts of committed relationship is it supports us to get really real about who we are and how we live in the world, and part of that is also and part of making compromises, agreements, sacrifices, is also being really real about what we have to give and what we don't have to give. I really like the analogy of kind of a storehouse of grain. You know, that there is what there is in there. You know, it's not like it's just, you know, gonna pop them. The more is going to materialize in a moment. So this kind of this self-evaluation and really checking in with our resources and learning to be really real with one another, and then also, you know, like Katinka was talking about, you know, choosing some fiery paths of sacrifice because something's really worth it and really worth going for and really worth coming back to what Marion was saying, kind of retraining our behavioral patterns for. Yeah, I really like this piece about behavior, and that's what we can really compromise on in relationship.
And actually sometimes it is having to let go of something because you're choosing something else.
Change.
You have to keep checking in with the authenticity of your own integrity.
Yes.
You know, for why you're doing that. But that is not a bad thing necessarily at all.
Yeah.
Because you're choosing your gold, which is the other thing, you know. So it's fascinating. It's so lovely, this conversation.
And this is also how, you know, relationships end and new relationships form as well. Yeah.
I love what you said there, Sadhu. It was really beautiful.
Beautiful. Also, Karen Persons, hi Karen, says wonderful wisdom, Sadhu. True.
Thank you, Karen. That's lovely that she's here with us.
Yeah.
Super nice. Yeah. Thank you for your comments.
Yeah. And it's time for us, though. It's so lovely today. We could go on for another hour, I think, but it's time for us to say goodbye at the moment. So we will continue in a couple of weeks with a new roundtable. In the meanwhile, I wanted to suggest everyone who's following us to please visit goddessconference.com/shop and get a ticket for our wonderful event happening in Glastonbury. Like every year, our yearly meetup and gathering and union, beautiful place of magic and Goddess Conference from the 29th of July to the 3rd of August. We are expecting you. We wait for you. We are weaving a beautiful event for all of you to come and access and experience. And it's for couples, it's for singles, it's for everyone who wants to deepen their connection and knowledge and experience of what sacred union is all about in its many different forms and shapes. And you will be here, held in beautiful ceremonies by the ceremonial circle who's here with us today. We say hi again to Katinka students, to Sadhu,
hi, everyone.
to 𝗬𝗢𝗔𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗕,
Bye.
to Caroline Stevens.
Bye.
And again, please check their offerings as well. So Path of Love Mystery School for Katinka students. And again, the offerings of the teaching of 𝗬𝗢𝗩𝗘 from Marion, the connection through Eros with Sadhu. He has a lot of offerings online. Please check them all. And also Caroline Stevens' hypnotherapy. Please check all their creative works and weavings. And please do come at conference. From all of us, much love to you all. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.